Thank you everyone for being here early this morning. All the students and everyone who's here, thank you so much. What an esteemed panel. All really big people from their own fields, and pleasure to have you here today. So a quick question, we'll start the discussion right away. I'll begin with you, Gautam. Do you see a growing dependency on technology in publishing? And you've moved from the traditional publishing to involve other platforms now with Pratilipi. Do you see publishing getting more and more experimental and adventurous?
Yeah, definitely the role of technology in publishing is only growing. On one side, it's the process side of publishing, the editorial, the typesetting, the whole process of production is getting more and more technology dependent. On the other side, while we do have the physical book, and the physical book remains clearly an important aspect of book publishing and will remain, I think there's the emergence of new formats. It could be e-books, it's web-based writing, it could be app-based writing, audio in different forms. You could have just straightforward audiobooks, or let's say dramatic adaptations of audio. There could be comics, digital comics. So there's a lot of potential now in experimenting with various formats.
Yeah, that's great. You have to keep moving with the times. Yes, absolutely. So, Kiran, I'm going to ask the question. Anybody here has used the Kiran font? Okay, wonderful. Who else? Lovely. So, he's the founder of the Kiran font. Imagine, kind of discovering a font, like a discovery in that sense. Well, that's great. So, Kiran, I want to ask you, what inspired you to create the Kiran font? What was the thought behind it? And I think you distribute it for free, right? So why do you do that? And it's been 25 years. Do you not want any money out of it?
Okay, so there are a lot of questions.
Yeah, all put together.
And I see a lot of young crowd here. So it's already, this is the 25th year the Kiran font has been there. And so for many of them, it is kind of a historical thing. But this is way back in 1999. We hardly used to have any presence of Indian languages on computer. So even today, most of the time English and Roman script is used, even after advent of Unicode. But in 1999, the Devanagari font or script was only used for desktop publishing industry. So there were few packages there who were using it. But for a normal people like common man like you and me, for communication only Roman Lipi was available. And there were a few attempts made at that point in time, like Shivaji and those kind of fonts. They were available free. But I said, this is not going to work. And I had one friend, Prasad Joshi, with me. And we used to converse in Roman Lipi in Marathi language. That is our native language. But we were not satisfied with that. And then I said, somebody has to do it, then why not me? So I created my first font in 1999 that was named as Kiran only. And we started using it. It was so natural that we started distributing it to friends. And then I didn't expect that this will go so much viral. And it's just happened like that. And then I never thought of it commercially.
And you still don't?
I still don't.
Oh, that's nice of you. So, Nadim, we've heard, now you're seeing Shimmr AI everywhere. We've branded you pretty well. I hope you agree.
Yes, absolutely.
So, but what does Shimmr do? What do you use AI for actually? What is Shimmr AI?
Shimmr AI is a really practical application of AI. So we don't make our own model, we apply the models to publishing. And specifically what we do is we had the insight from talking to publishers that the backlist, a long tail of books which don't see the light very often. Much of the marketing expenditure of publishers goes to the front list, to new titles, and then the assets that they have in the backlist, you hope to find. There's a discoverability problem, a challenge in publishing. And we thought, well, maybe we can help to solve that. We can help to bring the light. We can help books to shimmer. That's why we got our name. And bring a different economic model to it, because traditionally, advertising a book involved many weeks, if not months, of interactions between many people, many different departments, lots of toing and froing. And we wondered whether we could take the whole advertising process with the latest models of AI and make it a machine process. So what we specifically do is produce automated advertising for publishers to bring their books into the light. And all that they need to do is to give us the EPUB or the PDF, and the first machine analyzes it and produces what we call book DNA, which is a kind of psychological profile of the book. It understands what it's about, it knows what the psychological values and emotions are in it, and it says this book is about fishing in Sweden, but it's also about the joy of family living and ambition, or something like that. And it gives it to the second machine, which is the generator, and the generator says, oh, that's an interesting brief, I understand what advertising I have to make. And it produces images, we're now experimenting with video, it produces captions, all completely faithful to the book. So now we have a manifestation of the book that's really engaging because it's based on the psychological profile, what's going to hook people. And it gives it to the third machine, which we call the deployer, which says, I know where the people who like this sort of thing live, on Meta, on Google, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest, and many other platforms. And it then brings the advertising to those people, and they go, wow, that seems like the sort of book that appeals to me. So this book that was kind of hiding in the shadows has had advertising that's very faithful to it, that brings it to life, shows it to people, and they click buy now. And so we're helping publishers to have more revenues, authors to have more recognition, and readers to be matched with books that are more fulfilling. So it's kind of a virtuous circle, using AI to assist the publishing industry to make more of itself.
Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, it's
and
great.
I like the emotional angle of it very much.
Yeah.
Because we don't really match AI with the emotional
Yeah.
quotient of it. So that's very interesting.
I'm a psychologist, and many of the team are psychologists,
Oh, how
so
nice.
we started with a psychological basis.
That sounds interesting. So, Gautam, now that this sounds very interesting, do you think, and of course that artificial intelligence is now almost kind of taking over our lives in different ways, do you think that it's a threat to publishing in any way? And also writing books, and tell me what you think about this. What are your thoughts on this?
I think there's no getting away from AI, right? So so I think the best approach. So I think the best approach is to really figure out how we can use AI rather than say, oh, something that I'm scared of and I'll stay away from it.
Yeah.
I see in terms of productivity, it can definitely help. As it is, all of us, without realizing it, are using some form of AI or the other. When you're, using something like a Word document, when you actually type a Word document, there is an element of AI. And many of these tools are actually going to enhance the AI as they go along. I mean, as it is, Grammarly, which is a tool used in editing, is already enhanced. Put AI on top of the tool, so it can definitely enhance productivity. I think it can also help us achieve certain things which in the normal course we wouldn't have thought of. Now, to give you an example, let's say I've been reading examples, and I think this book itself is a great example, that he actually can get it translated into many languages with the use of AI. Now, the cost of translation, say, supposing we publish a book in India and we want to, translate it into Arabic, sorry. It's not something that's going to happen. The cost of translation means we are not even going to attempt it. But if you have an AI tool which actually helps us do it, there'll still be need for some human interface to make sure that the text is right and we've not made any major mistakes there. Caught the nuance of the original. It's really going to open up these kind of opportunities. It could be translation, it could be audio. So I think publishers need to really figure out what they can do with it rather than run away from it.
So that it kind of attaches itself to the earlier question I asked you about being experimental and adventurous with publishing through AI.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so, Kiran, now that we're talking about AI and an organic font that you have created, first, of course, I would like to know how you created it and what was your creative process. But also, I want to know how AI could now affect the creation of fonts.
Sure. So when I created, that was long back, and now technology has changed vast. So I had to literally hunt for a software which will create a font. Okay, using a font is probably everybody might be aware of it, but creating. But fortunately, there was some guy in UK itself. I don't. He's no more actually. I just tried to find out a reference here. He had one software then. That time it were used to called as shareware. That means you use it. If you like it, you pay for it. Okay, so I used that because I was also doing an experiment of creating this Devanagari font. So actually speaking, it's a creative process, but it's very, very tough. Because what you need to do is you have to actually draw the characters on the paper, you have to scan it, then it gets vectorized. And in Indian language, which has a line on the top, you have to accurately adjust the alignment. Because if you type, you must have seen Devanagari typewriters. So even that alignment is mismatched. But in desktop publishing, all the fonts, if you see Devanagari fonts, you get a straight line there. That is not like somebody is drawing that, but the placement is such that alignment of the each and every character is that. So that is the toughest part. Otherwise, it's a creative process.
Yeah, but what is the creative process?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what.
How do you work around it?
So you have to draw the each and every character.
Oh, every character
Yes.
has to be drawn.
And that too in a big size. Okay, because you have to scan, that clarity has to be there, the resolution has to be there. And then it gets converted into vector form. See, let me tell you one thing. Like, for example, even if you take a picture of any, with a high resolution camera, if you zoom into it, after some time it will get pixelites, right? But that doesn't happen with any font. Okay, how much ever you enlarge it, like you have a point size of 14, or you can enlarge it to 600 points, its clarity doesn't get diminished. Because of the technology it is used, it is called as vectorization. And vectorization is basically the points are plotted and the computer actually extrapolates that as a graph, the way we draw the graph. And then the inside of that is painted by black or whichever color we choose. So that vectorization process, if we get any losses in that, then your shape gets disturbed. So that is the critical process there.
So it's much like the PDF we are now using in a way. Just lock it up.
Yeah.
Right?
So coming to your next question, like now. So for example, what I see, I don't know whether there are any AI softwares for that. But for example, if I just draw one character, and AI can definitely extrapolate it to, it will create automatically the other characters. It should do that. And you can get a handwriting fonts also. Like for example, if I write some text, it can scan, it can extract the individual letters or characters from that, and you can create a font. So I see these two applications for AI.
Okay, it might get simpler for you, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so you mentioned psychologists who work on the software that you're working.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit more about that, but also do you work with authors on their books when you take up a book?
Two different questions.
Yes.
The psychological basis of the Shimmr model is essentially we surveyed all of the psychological literature and thought, what are the best ways to analyze emotions, psychological values, areas of interests in written works? And we iterated with the combination of these different well-known frameworks, our own framework for understanding the way a book goes. So we understand whether it's tension, we understand whether it's about a rise against the establishment, whether it's a loyal support of a sister. You know, we kind of have mapped all the emotions that are expressed. It's actually around 990 million. I always wish it was a billion, but it's about 990 million different kind of potential identifications of the psychological values in a book. So the AI reads it and kind of begins to map what's going on in this book and produces a unique fingerprint. So that's the way the psychology kind of works behind it. In terms of working with authors, we really don't. We work with publishers. There are a lot of authors approach us and we try to help them to bring their books to the market and to manifest them in advertising. But we don't get involved in the writing process or the creative process of the author at all. You know, this isn't an AI to help authors to create their works. This is an AI to help written works come to the attention of readers.
Yeah.
So it's really not part of the authoring process, it's part of the marketing process.
Yeah, but what I meant was that suppose your psychological team has found a certain emotional theme to the book,
Yeah.
but the author may not agree with you.
Yeah.
Has that ever happened? I mean, in that sense, is the author involved in the marketing of the book?
Well, it depends on the relationship between the publisher and the author. I mean, we work with publishers, and they have permission from their authors to deal with us. So our relationship and our interactions are really all with the publishers. In fact, the only thing that we've had is the authors being delighted that
that's
we've
nice.
managed to find the emotions that they weren't sure were being shown easily. Or, I mean, the way the software is tuned is to bring out the most gripping parts of a book, the things which are going to move you the most.
Right.
So that because advertising is very brief, you know, people see it quickly and they respond or they don't. But at the moment, our advertising has about 15 times the normal amount of action happening. So when people see the ads, about 15 times more than you would expect normally interact with it to buy the book. And that's all driven by the psychological basis.
That sounds reasonable. I mean, if you start dealing with every author, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Gautam, coming to you, now that we see that AI is really taking over even writing, you know, like people are actually even writing books with AI. I just heard recently that there's a publishing house which has started, which is going to publish 10,000 manuscripts a year through AI. They don't even need writers anymore. So I don't know how this is going to affect other publishers, but what challenges do you face on the manuscript side of the things? I mean, do you see writers using AI more to write their manuscripts? How are you going to approach all this now?
Yeah, I think that's something for the publishing world to actually debate and figure out what the rules are going to be, because it's not just a question of what help they took from AI. There's an element of copyright also here. Yes. Because what I've been reading so far, and I'm sure Nadim might know more about this, that it's if it's actually if you're using something from AI, then it cannot be copyrighted. So then, say 60% of your work, which was original, or 70% of your work was original, is fine, but the 30% may not. So I think we need to have some rules and guidelines framed, so that we are clear about the copyright angle on all this. Right. So that's one problem. The second part is when it comes to writers using AI, it's very possible that they would be using it for research. It's very possible that, so I think it's really going to be dictated, but the editor-author relationship is also going to be very important, and their comfort level between the editor and the author. There's also another level of vetting that happens because many manuscripts come to us from the agent. So the onus is also going to be on the agent to figure out how much of AI is actually being utilized and how it has been utilized. I think Nadim and I were just discussing this earlier in the day. I think as long as, and correct me if I'm wrong, as long as the author has actually used his own thought and used AI probably only as an assistant in some form or the other, it may not be such a bad thing.
So we have to use it all to our advantage.
I just want to add here, so AI can be used in multiple ways. One is called as generative AI, so that creates something. And one is for enhancement. So if the seedlet is given by the author and AI is used for enhancing that, that is the right use of that, instead of generating or recreating that.
Right, right. Nadim, so of course, the same question. Would you, I mean, now we know that publishers are open, like for example, this publisher that I saw that is now, or read about, that is now only going to do AI manuscripts. My two questions again to you, I'm going to combine them. One is, what has been your success rate, in publishing or marketing the books? Do you think that books are selling more? And second, would you accept books that have been written by AI?
I'm going to ask you to forgive me, but you're not representing that point correctly.
Okay,
the business is called Spines. It's an Israeli company that's now set up in Florida. And they are not using AI manuscripts at all. That's not what they do. What they're saying is that the publishing process is so long and convoluted between submitting a script and then, getting it edited and then getting it typeset and then printed and bound, that they're taking the whole process and AIing it. So you still get an original manuscript, but the bringing to market, they're trying to do in 3 weeks. which of course, is so unusual for
Which is
publishing.
something that I think Microsoft is also attempting. with their
Exactly.
publishing.
Yeah.
Are
So
we
AI
talking
is
about
being
the
used.
same publishing house? Because I clearly read that they do plan to have only AI-generated manuscripts.
Right.
No? Okay, I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, no, you might be right. It might be a different one from the one I'm thinking about.
Okay,
but,
yeah,
but there's
yeah.
been a lot of publicity about it in the
Yeah,
last few
okay,
weeks.
yeah.
And it is being misunderstood as we're going to do AI books.
Okay.
It's not. We're going to AI the production process and the marketing process, the royalties, the contracts, the audiobooks, the translations. They're doing it all by AI. So if you bring a book to them, they say in 3 weeks, we'll give it global distribution, produced, printed, and marketed because of AI. So obviously that's different. So, but to come to the question of books written by AI, I think it's the very worst use case of AI. I would not write books with AI. I wouldn't go to an AI and say, I want to write a book about a little boy who goes swimming in a stream with his dog. Can you write it for me, please? It's going to be a dull book that sounds very flat. That there are tons of other things you can do in the creative process with AI. You can make your book interactive, you can translate it, you can audiobook it, you can do tons of research around it, you can have an interactive iteration of the book where people build their own endings or different parts of it. So I think there's many more interesting creative uses of AI than writing a book. I just wouldn't do that. And then your question about what success are we having? It's really rare for a book that's brought into the light through advertising not to sell. The only thing that we find is that if, advertising isn't magic, so if it's not a very good book, it won't sell even if we do the best advertising. And that's kind of good, because we shouldn't be pretending that something's good with our advertising when it isn't. And some of the markers that we're seeing, it's a global phenomenon, is if you have fewer than 50 Amazon reviews, and if you have lower than a 4-star review, your book probably won't sell very well, even with advertising. But if you do have
point
those,
to remember.
it is.
Yeah.
But if you have 50 reviews, more than 50, and all above four stars, then it's very likely that advertising will make it accelerate.
So a very interesting and valid point. I don't know if there are any authors here, but I think we need to understand that we need 50 plus reviews to get our marketing to start working. So one last quick round of questions before we open it to the audience. Would it be, Gautam, would it be illegal to write a book with AI? I mean, I know you talked about copyright, but where would a publisher draw a line with ethical and legal with manuscripts?
As far as I understand it, it's not so much a legal issue.
Okay.
It's more an ethical issue.
Okay.
So, like I think all of us are sort of agreed, the primary thing is that the thought has to come from the author. And as long as that is there, some element of, assistance from AI might be allowed. Yeah, so I think it's more an ethical question rather than a legal question. I don't know if you have any different thoughts on the legality of AI.
Yeah.
I think there's so much fascination with copyright that obviously if you purely write with AI, you don't get copyright credit for it. But from a human perspective, I think it's quite interesting. I was saying to Gautam earlier on, imagine if we let AI write books. Now, this is not what I advocate, but imagine if we did, and they were good, and we actually were fascinated, and somehow AI figured out the books that would really excite us and keep us enraptured in reading. Then we have a question to ask, is that a bad thing? If AI produced books which were so fascinating, so fulfilling, so psychologically matched to us, that we read a book every day and turned children back to reading regularly, is that a bad thing? Now, I'm not advocating for that to happen, but I'm trying to leave open the possibility that AI will help readership, will help literature, and that may learn what it is that really satisfies us in reading.
What about the writers then? Would it not make them redundant?
Well, I don't think AI starts without the impetus of writers. So the writers will always have to inform what the AI is doing. But I can see a future where there's a symbiosis between the authors and the AI.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let me add here.
Yeah.
See, like for example, I'm a technical person, And I have, as I said, I have a book which is half cooked. Okay, and it is very technical, but I want to publish it as a novel, and I am not a author who is novel that. So probably AI can help in that area, so that to expand that particular idea and narrate it as a story or something to my audience. So I will use AI as my assistant to narrate what I want to tell and bring it to the audience.
Gautam?
Just one point, in fact, which again Nadim and I were discussing earlier, is that on the flip side, my concern is that it should not, in a way, let's say, inhibit human creativity. We shouldn't become lazy, you know, in the sense that we are coming up with a story, we need to make sure that we are continuing to be creative.
Right.
But if we start saying, okay, like, you know, we said an idea, you know, we just give a single line and say this is the story we want, and then say pass it off as ours.
Yes.
We are in a way killing our own creativity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that I think is something that each person who uses AI needs to do sort of a self-governance.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you, because the satisfaction of a writer is creating his own work. And even today when people tell me, why don't you just do even research on AI, and I'm so hesitant because I feel those words will creep into my manuscript. So yeah, we need to, but you've partly answered the next question. But one question to you, Kiran, are you going to be creating new fonts with the use of AI?
Okay, so actually speaking, the thought behind creating Kiran font in 1999, the requirement itself was different, okay, because there was no technology available to express your thoughts in Indian language script to be visible on screen. Now, even Unicode was there, it's from 1991, but it did not take over, and even today there are few issues with that. But if you see on mobile and all, quite technology backing is there now. And even I used to think that this was a stopgap arrangement. So I was thinking that, you know, once that is taken up by the system, I would gracefully shut down my initiative. But it did not happen, and there were people, like a lot of friends encouraged me. So ultimately I ended up creating 11 more fonts till
wonderful.
2012. Okay, but after that I stopped creating that because, but still I see there are, I mean, whenever I go to any forum, I did not ask that question what I asked you. But I was surprised many times, many people knew about it and they're still using it. So in 2012, what I did, I wrote a utility. I'm a technical person, I'm from IT background. So that will, that has a bridge between Unicode and Kiran fonts. So if anyone has written anything in Kiran font, that will get converted into Unicode. So Unicode is what, I mean, whatever the text you see on your mobile, the Indian language text. So their efforts will not be gone. So right now I haven't thought of any new font creation.
So you've already answered this question, but if you want to add to it, how threatening, this is for all three of you, how threatening is AI really, and how worried should we be? Should we be worried at all? Maybe Gautam?
Like I said earlier, I think we just need to be very conscious of how we use it, that's all. I don't think we should be threatened.
No need to feel threatened. Verdict given. Kiran?
See, my thoughts are is something like whenever you come across a new term or new technology, there is some fear in the people's mind, but there is nothing need to be worried about. See, in 1980s, when computers were new, people were thinking like, oh, our jobs will be gone, now what automation people will replace and all. But whenever a job is gone, there are two more new created. So you have to understand, you have to be in the world, the reality. You get to know more about that. And obviously, we have to upgrade ourselves. So the fear is gone. There is absolutely, I don't think there is any threat for anybody. It will enhance the work. Okay.
Wonderful. Yeah. Upgrade yourself, yes.
I think it's a really deeply philosophical question, actually, because humans created artificial intelligence. I call it allied intelligence because I think it's closer to what we're really using it for. And I think outside of publishing, just like with humanity, because in a sense, AI is a representation of humanity. It's mirroring us. It can only be what we give it of ourselves, and it learns all about us. So there's good in us and there's bad in us. It's helping to find drug discovery much more quickly. It's also making bio-warfare more viable on a small scale, so you can make it at home. So of all the good that comes with it, there's also the bad that comes with it. But within publishing, I think apart from writing books with AI, which I think is the worst use case, as I said, I think there's just almost endless really positive things that we can do with it.
Wonderful. We will now open it to the audience. Any questions from the audience? Somebody with a mic here, please.
Hi, Kiran sir. The question is for you. I'm over here. So you said that with computers, we saw that for every one job lost, we got 2 new jobs. But the people losing jobs aren't the same as the ones, the gaining new ones. So for the person losing the job, it's very personal experience. So I don't think he'll be or she'll be satisfied with the fact that overall the society is doing better.
Okay. Also, I said that we need to keep on upgrading ourselves, okay? And let me be very blunt on that. Those people who will lose, the jobs, they would not have upgraded themselves. So if you keep on upgrading yourself, definitely you will have the job.
Anybody else?
Can I ask a question if
yeah.
there is time?
No, there's
Oh, there is one there.
yeah.
Hi. So it's great that we're talking about human creativity and all of that, but I also want to ask about ghostwriting. So many times there is this famous person, he doesn't write on his own, so they tend to hire like a whole group of ghostwriters. So what is your take on AI potentially, working with ghostwriting as a subdomain in publishing?
I think the question is to all of them. Okay, all right. Maybe Gautam, you can take it.
Yeah, I think it's a very strong possibility because first of all, ghostwriting invariably happens for like celebrity books, because a person who from a different profession is not a writer in the first place. They are the ones who use ghostwriters. So any tool that assists them, but again, it has to be there. I would keep stressing it has to be their thought. Like if I'm narrating my life and I'm saying, okay, this is my life, and then that's being put into some kind of word form, in the form of a text. Whether he uses a human to actually do the ghostwriting or he uses a AI, I'm not so sure it's a problem.
You want to answer that?
Excuse me. I've noticed a new AI company recently in publishing called Clio. And Clio are sort of book architects, I think they call themselves. So if you have an idea for a book, but you struggle to know where to start, or you have 17 chapters, but you don't know quite how to arrange them, or you think you're a bit long-winded and you could do with some editing, it basically says, I've analyzed all the things that you've given me, and I've reordered it and streamlined it in these ways, which I think makes it a more effective argument. So AI is helping that author to have greater clarity. I don't think that's ghostwriting. I think that's
It's actually developmental editing is what we would call it.
Yeah, that's right. And that is accessible for, I think, $25 a month or something, as opposed to the several $1,000s it would cost to engage with a publishing house or an editor in the UK. So that democratizes the ability to express yourself in a really articulate way that people can comprehend and enjoy. So I see that really as a positive thing. It's not about giving your thoughts to a ghostwriter and saying, I want to write a book about, Japanese cakes being consumed in Pune. You just say, I've written these things here, but can you help me to organize it a bit better? And it does that.
You see, as an author myself, I feel threatened when I hear about AI, right? Now, what I did, I did an experiment. I took one of my stories, I write short stories, real life stories. So I took one of those stories, put it through an AI and got a result, an output, which because I was biased, I thought it was not very good, one. So coming to morality, you spoke about morality. should there not be any laws that govern? Why should I put my name on a book that I haven't written? I've just sown the seed, like you said. Why should not be there any laws? Should not there be some international stroke national laws in this case? The question is to the panel.
Isn't that an extension of ghostwriting in a sense? I mean, like, my thought, I keep stressing this, it's my thought, it's my ideas, it's my story, but I'm using a technology to help me structure it in a proper manner. It's like taking a ghostwriter or like a developmental editor actually helping you, is my sense.
Absolutely. Even I also said the same thing. Since the original idea was yours, it's like you have given a seed to the program and it has grown into a tree. So that tree belongs to you because you have sown it.
I believe there is no copyright on ideas. Is there? There is? On ideas? I have a feeling there is not because on ideas, not content.
I think it's on expressed ideas.
Yes, exactly. It's not ideas.
You have to
Exactly.
express it.
So that's what we're saying. Yeah. So yeah, but no ideas. You just can't just copyright an idea. It's like universal.
Yeah.
So it can't be in your head. Exactly. It needs to be somewhere to yes to copyright it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
You wanna
see
answer
a
that?
question in the back also.
No, I think Nadim, you're
Sorry.
answering
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I'm an author also, of a book about publishing and lots of unpublished stories about children's stories. But so I understand the threat that authors feel from AI. I think it depends what you do with them. I don't know what you ask the AI to do for you, but you can get some really boring, bland stuff. A lot depends. I was talking to Gautam earlier that a lot of what you get from AI depends on what you give it. It's like most relationships. The more you interact and the more richly you interact, the more likely you are to get something that's quite fulfilling or satisfying. So if you do one-line simple prompts, you'll get pretty bland, modest stuff coming back because it's trained to do that. It's trained to be helpful. You're not provocative, just to give you something that's pretty safe and helpful. But, I write a regular column for a publishing magazine in the UK. And historically, I would write my first draft and then I'd think, yeah, not so good, and I'd write a second one. Normally not further than the third one, but by the third one, I'm usually quite content with myself. I'm quite satisfied. These days, I take my third draft and I give it to an AI and I say, please argue with me, show me how I'm an idiot, or tell me how the point that I think is so unique for me isn't. And it comes up and it says, well, don't want to be rude, but these three people have talked about this in the last 5 months, and actually it fits with this philosophy from the Middle Ages, and it goes, oh my God. And it educates me so much and helps me then to articulate my column in a more thoughtful, circumspect way with more wisdom than I actually have, because it's helped me to achieve a quite focused bit of wisdom about the thing that I'm talking about at the time. So I think in that sense, it's enriching me as an author. It's actually giving me more sophistication and more wisdom. And I think that's the best way to use AI. Not to write something for you, but to kind of argue with you, to be your companion in developing a concept.
Any more questions? Just raise your hands. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So AI is basically data and information, right? It can do data processing at a speed which our mind can't. And that's what we feel as wisdom. Kiran, my question is to you. Your LinkedIn post 2 days back, right? It says that generative AI, and it talks about the human writers, going unnoticed, right? So do you think that apart from AI or with the assistance of AI, blockchain or any other technology, or what's your thought? Can it protect humans and human writers 10 years down the time?
Yeah, I would say it is more than the creation. It's about the ignorance of the audience. That's what my post was. See, in WhatsApp now we have in the world where we are having information blasting, okay, and people will not know whether I was specifically talking about generative AI. So where you create a photos or picture or videos, even spoofing the real personalities, right? Some creation for entertainment is okay, but even those creations you will not be distinguished. There are real artists who are spending lot of hours to create a painting, and AI is just doing it in few minutes, and the audience that is not knowledgeable may not be able to find out the real difference. So my post was about that, okay? And if you have got 100 such creations in front of you and few of them are from real artists, so it will get lost. That was about that topic. And I'm happy that you read that article. Thanks.
So we have 3 minutes left, and I have one final question for all of you. Very quickly, what is that one worst thing and one best thing about AI in your field? You can answer in one word, one line, whatever. For all three of you.
Best thing is what I said earlier. If it can enhance productivity and actually help us grow, reach new markets or grow into different formats, it's great. I think the worst thing is what Nadim said. If AI actually wrote a book from beginning to
True.
end.
Yeah, Kiran.
See, I always say technology is how you use it, okay? So smartphones were invented to save you time,
Yeah.
and you can see what it is today.
Yeah.
So similarly, how you will use AI is up to the user, okay? And the thought behind that, if you want to use it productively to improve your expression, definitely that is useful. For destructive minds, it can create distractions also.
Okay. Nadim.
I believe that, there's about 8 billion of us on Earth, and I think every one of us is a creative. And I think until recently, we had a lot of silent creatives who couldn't express themselves. And I think one of the best things about AI is it's going to find a way for people to articulate their creativity, not necessarily to write for them, but to give them ideas about how to collaborate with others or how to bring their ideas to life. And so I'm really excited about a new wave of creativity. And I think we need to be modest enough to allow all the new creatives amongst us to emerge and to have their voices. So that's the thing that I find most exciting. And the worst thing is just when you get a sort of a very basic prompt of an AI to write something for you, and you get this bland, lifeless, soulless stuff coming back. I think that's the worst use case for AI.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. 3 brilliant people from 3 creative fields working with writing and books. What a wonderful panel, wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here today. Thank you, everyone.